All right, sixth graders, let's open up to page 232 in your math textbook. So down at the bottom here, page 232. This is going to be where we start talking about, or the book talks about how to divide a decimal by a one-digit number or a whole number. You will notice that up here it says when dividing a decimal by a whole number, divide as with whole numbers. So we're going to stop there. When we're dividing with a decimal and a whole number, you are going to divide like normal, like you would, like we just did in the unit before this or the lesson before this. And then you're going to place a decimal in the quotient, which is the answer, on top, just like this, on top of your bracket, directly above its place in the dividend. Now, let's look here. Example number 1 says 6.8 divided by 2. Now, if you remember, I drew in my X here to show that 2 goes on the outside and 6.8 would go on the inside. Okay, so they have that set up. So let's rework it over here. 2 into 6.8. Okay, now we know the answer and we can kind of look at their steps, but let's solve it as if we didn't know their answer. Okay, so 2 into 6.8. This, we would start out by placing the decimal point where it is on the inside part of the bracket, directly above. Before you even start solving the problem, you're going to put your decimal point in your quotient above. Okay, then you can start dividing. So now we can do 2 divided by 6, or how many times does 2 go into a 6? We know that that is 3. So then we're going to multiply 3 times 2 to give us 6. When we subtract, we're left with 0 left over. And now that I have my decimal point up here, I can kind of think of this as 68 instead of 6.8. So because I have 0 left over and I still have numbers going here, I'm going to bring my 8 down below here. And now my problem is going to be, how many times does 2 go into 8? 2 goes into 8 4 times, and I'm going to place that 4 right above the 8, or the digit that I'm working on, or that place value in the problem here. So now my answer, or multiplying 4 times 2, gives me 8. I subtract. I'm left with 0. I have no numbers left over here, and I have 0 down here. We're done with the problem. So now 3.4 would be my answer. If you forgot to put your decimal point up here, your decimal point up here, and you got 34 as your answer, you might want to double check and look, okay, I know 2 times 34 does not give me 6.8, but it gives me 68. So maybe I'm missing a decimal point somewhere. Okay, there's always that way to double check. All right, down here, it has a couple problems. Let's practice with these. And I'm going to solve them over here and maybe over here or up here. And I would like you to follow along and solve them along with me in your book so you have some examples written down. So remember, I'm going to put in my X to show that my 7.5 is going to go on the inside and my 3 is going to go on the outside. Before I start solving, I put my decimal point straight up and now I can begin dividing. So 3 goes into 7 2 times because I know 3 times 2 gives me 6. But when I subtract, I have 1 left over, and I have to bring down my 5. So now I'm left with 3 going into 15, and I know that's an even number, or a whole number. That is 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. When I subtract, I get 0 at the end. There's no other numbers over here. 0 is down here. My answer would be 2.5. Okay, let's try this one again, or this one over here, letter B. Put in my X. If it helps you to do that before each problem, go ahead and do that. I'm going to solve this one in this space over here. So sorry if that gets confusing. I will cover this up so you don't have to look at that. So 7 goes on the outside. 3.5 goes on the inside. Before I start solving, I put my decimal point straight up, and I begin. 7 goes into 3. That can't go in. So I know I have to put my 0 up here because it can't even go in once. 0 times 7 is 0. When I subtract, I'm left with 3. But then I have to bring down my next digit, my 5. Now I can do 7 goes into 35. And I know that my answer is going to be written above this digit here because this is the place value that I'm working with. So 7 goes into 35 5 times, evenly. 5 times 7 is 35. I subtract, I get 0 down here. I don't have any digits left to bring down over here, so my answer is done. It's found, 0.5. Okay, now let's work on this problem over here, and I'll solve it over here so you have a little bit more space between the problems here. Okay, so 2 is going to go on the outside. 9.8 is going to go on the inside. Before I even start dividing, put my decimal point up. 2 goes into 9. Well, I know 2 times 4 is 8. And if I did 2 times 5, that would be way more, or 1 more than what I need here. So I'm going to stick with 4. 4 times 2 gives me 8. When I subtract, I have 1 left over. And I bring my 8 down. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 9 times 2 is 18. Left with 0. No more digits over here. My answer is 4.9. Okay, now this was just with a 1-digit number. The bottom section here, and on to the next page, is doing a 2-digit number on the outside. So if you look at this problem here, it is doing 7.7 divided by 14. So when I do that, I'm going to add in my x to help me remember where each one goes. So 14 is going to go on the outside, and 7.7 is going to go on the inside. Place my decimal point up here, and now I can begin. But I know that 14 is a lot greater than 7. So that means 14 can't go into 7. So my answer is going to be 0 for that problem. 0 times 14 is 0. When I subtract, I get 7 left over. And now I bring down my next digit, 77. And I have to figure out how many times 14 can go into 7. Well, I know I can look over here, but let's just try to kind of figure it out and play that game that Khan Academy talked about in yesterday's video. So 14, I know 14 plus 14 is 28. And I know that 28 is equal to 2 groups of 14. So I might see what 28 plus 28 is, and that would be 2 more groups of 14. So I get 56. Okay, so 56 is equal to 4 groups of 14. Now, I know I can probably get at least 1 more group of 14 in there, so let's add 14 to this. 6 plus 4 is 10. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 70. So that's 1 group equal to 70. And I know I can't add another one. 7 is all I need, and I have 14 I'm trying to fit into this difference here, so I know I can stop. I use 2 groups, and 1 group. So that means it's a total of 5 times that I can go into 77. 5 times 14 is 70. I'm left over with 7. But now, if this isn't 0 and I'm not out of digits up here, I need to add a 0 over here. Then I bring it down. And now I have a new problem, 14 going into 70. But I already know that answer over here. So that would be a 5. 5 times 14 is 70. And I'm left with 0 at the bottom. No more digits over here. And we are done. And that's what they got for their answer too. But sometimes when they have it solved out for us over here, I have a hard time looking at the steps that they did. So I always have to resolve it out over here to see where I am supposed to do the things that I'm supposed to do. Okay, let's go over to page 233 and do a couple more practice problems. So we have 9.48 divided by 15. If I do my x, I'm going to solve it. Let's solve it down here. So 15 is going to go on the outside. 9.48 is going to go on the inside. My decimal point goes straight up. And now I know 15 can't go into 9, so that would be 0. 0 times 15 is 0. I'm left with 9 left over. Bring down my 4. 15 can go into 94. Let's see, I know 15 plus 15 is 30. 30 is equal to 2 groups of 15. Okay, so if I can count up by 30s, 30, 60, 90. You know, that's probably as close as I can get to 94. So that means I'm using 6 groups of 15. 2 groups of 15 going to 30. 30 plus 30, which would be 2 more groups. 4 total is 60. 60 plus 30, 2 more groups, is 90. 6 total. So 6 times 15 is 90. When I subtract, I have 4 left over. And I'm going to bring down my 8. So now I'm doing 15 into 48. Let's see. 15, 30. What's 30 plus 15? 45. That's 3 groups of 15. And that's as close as I can get to 48. So that is 45. When I subtract them, I'm left over with 3. So I need to add another 0 here. Bring down, oops, a little too far with my arrow. Bring down my 0 over here. And now I'm doing 15 going into 30. That's an easy one. That's 2. 2 times 15 is 30. When we subtract, we get 0. We're out of digits up here, and we're done with our answer. So that is 0.632. Okay, we're going to do one more, and I'll solve it down here. So we have 4, actually, let's do letter F. Letter F, 17 into 55.08. Put my decimal point straight up. And I know with my x that 17 goes on the outside, 55.08 goes on the inside. All right, so 17 can go into 55. You can kind of group these together because it's the digits before the decimal point. If you wanted to, you could do 17 into 5 and then 17 into 55, but you know right off the bat, 17 can't go into 55 or 5. So we'll start off with 55. 17 plus 17 is 34. Let's see if we can add, which is equal to 2. Let's see if we can add one more 17. And if we can't, not a big deal. 4 plus 7 is 11. 1 plus 3 plus 1 is 5. I can add one more. So now I have 51, giving me a total of 3 groups of 17. So that means it can go into 55 3 times, giving me 51. When I subtract, I have 4 left over, and I bring down my 0. 17 goes into 40 2 times, because I know that's as high as it can go, 34. 2 times 17 is 34. When I subtract, I get 6. Bring down my 8. Let's see here. I have 51 here. Let's add another 17 to this. Be 8, 6, which would be another one over here. So I know that 17 can go into 68 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 4 times 17 is 68. I'm left with 0 at the end. No digits remaining over here. My answer would be 3.24. Okay. Now your homework is actually going to be in the packet that you were given earlier. You're going to be doing the next page in there, which is the second page. This one doesn't have a page number on there, but you are going to be doing the page that says divide decimals by whole numbers. Okay, the first problem, make sure that you're doing the right worksheet, is 9.6 divided by 3. Now, if it helps you to draw in your X's right below each one to remember which number goes in where, you are more than welcome to do that. And then there is one word problem at the bottom. Okay, so I will go through the points expected for each problem like I did on the last worksheet. So again, this is going to be, or each one of these problems, 1 through 6, it's going to be worth 2 points. 1 for showing your work, and 1 for the answer. Now, if you don't show your work, but you get the answer, you're going to miss a lot of silly points. Those are easy points to just not lose in the first place. So make sure you're showing your work so that I can see where you're making a mistake, where you're doing a great job. And if we need to backtrack a little on something, then I know where your mistake is. Okay, so each 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is worth 2 points using these expectations here. Number 7 at the bottom is going to be worth 3 points, just like all word problems are in my class. 1 point for showing your work. 1 point for the answer. And with word problems, you always need a label, so 1 point for your label. Think about what the question is asking you. Think about what measurement is being used to answer the question or to be found in your problem. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. And we will fill out our decimals notes booklet on the dividing decimals page in tomorrow's lesson.